Will Ahmed, thank you for joining me on the Mindful podcast
Thank you for having me.
in your hometown here in Boston.
That's right, home court advantage.
Yeah, your story is something else. This episode is about wearing your belief on your sleeve. I'm fascinated with how you maintain that belief, even when all the challenges are coming at you, and how you navigate stress because you can't do what you're doing without feeling some turbulence. So I'd love to get into that with you.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, building Whoop. I started this company 12 years ago, and I was 22 years old, and I really didn't know what I was doing, to state the obvious. I think I became an entrepreneur before I knew what an entrepreneur was. Whoop isn't just the first company I started, it's my first full-time job. And, in the last 12 years, we've now built a pretty meaningful business and got 600 employees and, global operation around the world. And of course, we provide wearable technology that improves people's health, which is a mission that, gets me super excited to wake up every morning.
I mean, not only is it a successful company and a dream that you're seeing realize, when I got out of my Uber from the airport, the first thing you see is the building and the Whoop letters across it. You're part of the fabric of the city here now.
Yeah, our headquarters is right in the center of the town and overlooking Fenway Park, and we've got a pretty large Whoop sign to go with it and a great outdoor balcony. The office space was something we committed to during the dead of COVID, and so it was a bit of a contrarian bet. Everyone in tech at least said that we were gonna live the rest of our lives on Zoom, and that wasn't the future I wanted to live in, and so we took a bet on a pretty big, office space, and it's been great. It's a vibrant environment where a very multidisciplinary team gets to come together. In order to build wearable technology, you need to have hardware and software and data science and design and brand and sales and marketing and all these different things. And so to have a very deep and multidisciplinary team get to work in the same building is, I think, pretty rewarding, but also critical to our success.
Mm. I want to get into the things that have got you to this point in terms of your mental strategy.
Hmm.
How were you with things like anxiety? Say, let's go back to 22-year-old you. How were you with stress, anxiety, self doubt? Where were we with all of those things?
Well, I'll start a little earlier. Like when I was, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, 15, so to speak. I think I was a pretty confident young person. I think, as a student and then, a young athlete growing up, I felt comfortable amongst my peers. I did well in school. I captained various teams and I went on to, play squash at Harvard and be a student at Harvard, and overall, I think was pretty comfortable in my skin. Like I was confident, and yet the idea of starting a company I found very daunting. That felt like it was a little beyond reach, if you will. And, I think there's a good saying, like, if you're nervous, be prepared. And so I was nervous about the idea that I couldn't get out of my head. And this idea, of course, was for Whoop. It was this idea I was wrestling with around, is there a better way to measure the human body? Why do I not know what I'm doing to my body while I'm training or exercising? Why am I someone who overtrains? Why do other athletes undertrain or misinterpret fitness peaks? Like, how does recovery and sleep fit into the equation? So I had all these ideas,
I
and
was trying to think, what was I thinking at that age? It certainly
well,
wasn't
look,
that.
I
How
mean,
long is this bar open till?
yeah. Well, look, I mean, part of the reason I overtrained is I was just go, go, go. Like, I
Mm.
would train as hard as I could. I would go out late in the night. I would drink, all the things that a college kid would do. So I don't want to act like I was sort of the perfect model citizen. But yeah, so I was wrestling with this idea, and I was trying to build the confidence to start the company. And come my senior year, I just essentially took that leap and I said, "Okay, this is what I'm gonna do." And I told my parents this is what we're gonna do, and I turned down going into the world of finance, which in some ways was very safe and cushy and easy to talk about at, at a party. But, the things that you think about in the shower or in the back of a cab right before you go to bed, like, I think these things matter. And for me, those things for the longest time have been about understanding the human body and unlocking performance, and so I just got pulled into building this thing. And I would say the first 12, 24 months of building it was a very new experience for me in my life because I faced so much rejection, like, just so much rejection. And I'd kind of, like, gone through life, being accepted in a lot of ways, like, and the process of trying to raise money, like, I cannot tell you how many people said no. I mean, hundreds of people over the years have rejected Whoop or rejected me in the context of trying to raise capital.
And what were the criticisms? What were the doubts that you were facing? Was it that you were too green, that the product just wasn't lighting them up, or you
Like,
know, I didn't have enough
what is
experience?
this 22-year-old kid who didn't have an engineering degree or isn't a doctor, going to do in this market up against Apple and Nike?
Mm.
And, reasonable, like, a reasonable take, but, like, that punches you in the face when you hear it enough times, and so
So in those moments then, what are you drawing on to go, I'm going to get out of bed tomorrow and I'm going to go and ask another 50 people for money for this thing I believe in? Because people quit. You know, that voice in your head gets louder. Maybe you start to believe them. You know, maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I need to hand this off to somebody. Maybe I need to get somebody more experienced than me in. But you didn't do that. So what were you drawing on there?
well, my belief system for the problem that we were solving was really strong, and it was probably even stronger than my own self-belief, and so I just got pulled towards that problem every day and solving it, and, uh and I had a lot of self-doubt then, like, really a lot, and I was really struggling taking care of myself. I think it was around no, it was definitely I was 24 years old. I, at that point, maybe had a team of 25 people. I had raised something in the neighborhood of 10 to $20 million, and all of that felt just enormous. I felt like I was under so much pressure, and uh, and I wasn't coping well with it, and, I would drink coffee and it would have no effect. I would drink too much alcohol. I was stressed. I was, strung out. And so I started to feel a lot of anxiety, and it culminated in having a panic attack, one day driving in my car.
So this is one thing we have in common, that we both had panic attacks in our cars,
Yeah,
which seems to be quite a common place to have them, I hear.
it's the first step to success.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I had kind of a big moment of self-reflection after that, and I said to myself, "Well, what can I create as a positive tool in my life?" I'd always had exercise, so, I was always fit, so that wasn't gonna be the outlet. I needed something else, and I landed on meditation, and I just took a transcendental meditation course for 4 days, and, I immediately felt better, and so I just I got hooked on it, and I started doing it twice a day, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon, and
What did you find it was doing for you? Like, how did it manifest? Were you more energized? Were you more patient? What did you experience, do you think?
well, as you know, there's kind of a few different things going on with meditation. I think there's how meditation makes you feel in the moment, and then there's how meditation makes you feel throughout the rest of the day and in your day-to-day life. And I didn't quite understand what was happening while I was meditating, if I think back on those early days of learning how to meditate, and I think that's probably something that people who try to learn how to meditate struggle with. They get into it and they kind of feel like they're not good at it, and so they actually miss the bigger effect that it's actually now having on the rest of their life. So I couldn't quite understand what was happening while I was meditating, but I did start to notice a shift throughout the day, which is that I was more even keeled, the highs felt more tempered, the lows felt higher, like, all of a sudden, it wasn't on this, like, yo-yo of emotions and so strung out, and I felt a little more balanced and a little happier. And then with time, as I started to really get into meditating, I realized how it could be this tool for shaping your world, and, it became something of a superpower. So whenever people ask me, "How did my career evolve in the last 12 years?" I do look back on that moment 2, 3 years into building the company, of discovering meditation and using that as one tool, for being able to control my emotions.
Is that really important in what you do, being able to control your emotions?
I think it's paramount, and I think it's worth noting, when you're a CEO, you're in front of people a lot, and how you are handling that presentation, so to speak, has a big effect on a lot of people. Spit at the top waterfall throughout the org is a little bit of how to think about it. Like, you have to be mindful of how you're directing traffic, and
A lot of people in management positions, regardless of the business, are not aware of that. That they're not aware that the stress that they radiate does travel downwards.
yeah. Yeah, there's the emotional transference too.
Mm.
Yeah, I found that the company got better at managing heightened moments, in part just because I was calmer about them, which is a powerful phenomenon in itself.
Yeah.
And if you're building an ambitious company, well, look, if you're building any company, stuff's gonna go wrong, right? And, how you and your team rise to that occasion is often a pretty good predictor of success.
Mm.
And, if you're really trying to push your org and you really wanna drive hard, you're gonna create problems along the way just by virtue of that pace.
Mm.
And so being in a position where you can be calm when things go wrong also actually allows you to drive harder, which is sort of an interesting phenomenon in that of itself.
Mm. You can also have more confidence in the fact that the decision you're about to make in the crisis is probably a better one, that it's less knee jerk, less you're less doing it for less emotional reasons, that you're probably more on point in terms of what you need to do because you're not reacting, you're responding, that
Yeah.
classic difference.
One other thing I think that's helped me actually handle stress over time is becoming more open-minded. When I was much younger in the role, I was very rigid, and I put up kind of walls around me, and it was a self-defense mechanism for the fact that I was insecure, uh, about the role that I was in, and I was insecure about my abilities, and I was insecure that everyone was telling me I was gonna fail, and maybe I was going to fail. I had that insecurity, and so I put up walls to essentially, I think, protect myself, and also just as a little bit of a coping mechanism for, "Look, I'm putting blinders on, I'm not even gonna hear what you're saying, and I'm just gonna go in this straight direction." And, that can work for a period of time, but it's worth acknowledging that it's pretty unpleasant for you, and it'll be pretty unpleasant for people around you, right? Because you're gonna shut off all forms of information flow. And so as I got more comfortable and as I got more open-minded and as I probably further developed meditation practice, I became less threatened by disagreement and rejection and all those things, and I started to just hear all of it, right? And I didn't have to listen to it, but I was able to bring it in and really absorb it and wrestle with it.
Mm.
And so, now funny enough today, it's like disagreement is almost a source of excitement for me because it's like, "Oh, well, what does this person potentially know that I don't?" Right? Or why do I feel so confidently about what I believe? And just to even be able to have that inner dialogue in a very open-minded way is I is a breakthrough.
Mm. What a breakthrough not just in business, but in life. If
Mm,
you can look at a disagreement with your spouse as an as an exciting event, but, even in a way,
and maybe I still need to
you're
work
like,
on
"Oh,
that.
you're throwing plates? How exciting." But the fact that you're able to have that self-awareness and distance and go, "Okay, there's potential for me to learn here," that you don't go super into defensive mode. Um, like, looking in from the outside of what your industry must be like, how competitive it is, what you are trying to do and what you've achieved. It's incredible. I don't know, are you able to tell me the Amazon story?
Yeah. In 2017, 18, Whoop was going through a bit of a vulnerable moment because we had gone from being a business that was really supporting a lot of professional athletes and teams and leagues to now becoming a consumer product. And it was an evolution we always knew we were gonna make. We always wanted to start with the world's best athletes. We always wanted to build a brand around performance. But it was a transition for the company, and when you make a transition like that, it can take a little longer, it can cost a little more, things can go wrong, and those things happen to Whoop. And so, Amazon came knocking around that time, and they said, "We'd be interested to invest in the company." And I thought to myself, "Okay, well, Amazon has a lot of distribution, maybe there's some strategic benefits here. Yeah, we'll engage on this." And so we spent a lot of time with Amazon, and we told them a lot of things that in hindsight we probably shouldn't have. And, not only did they not invest, 2 years later, they came out with a copycat product called the Amazon Halo, which looked so much like Whoop and had such a similar interface that the lead product manager from Amazon on the Amazon Halo went so far as to say, "Whoop, there it is," on the press announcement when it came out, and you can't even make that kind of arrogance up.
No.
And so there were a lot of people when that happened who reached out almost with, like, their condolences, so to speak, like like, "Rest in peace," you know? And, we had been through enough that it wasn't an existential feeling, and, if anything, we used it as a rallying cry in the organization.
Yeah, so just the day, the moment, the morning when you go, "Oh my god, those guys who I gave the grand tour to have now done this." Your immediate reaction would be like, the word that comes to my mind, even though it's a sort of a, I don't know, Pirates of the Caribbean type word, but skullduggery.
Yeah,
Like, it's such skullduggery. And it's, I guess, a glimpse into the reality of big business and the business you're in.
yeah.
When you go up against these other entities, that stuff, I guess, is going to happen. But it's so cold. And as you say, even using that tagline in the promotion of it. So when you get that realization, where where does your head go, and how did you react? Were you leaning into the meditation skills that you'd learned, or how did you navigate that? That would probably drive a lot of people crazy.
Well, I do think it helps to be competitive in a moment like that
Yeah.
and to have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, and I think people would probably describe me with those characteristics, and historically, Whoop hasn't spent that much time talking about competition or thinking about competition. We've kind of always found what's true to us and our identity and what the research says, like, that's been our governing compass, if you will. That said, if a competitor is gonna take a punch at us, we're gonna punch back, and that was the rallying cry we put around the Amazon moment, and I said to our team, "We're gonna stay true to us." They're copying us because 'cause we're out ahead, and we're gonna win. And we went so far that on our circuit board for our next generation product, which believe it or not is on every 4.0 circuit board, is a message, "Don't bother copying us, we will win." And we wrote that in large part as a message to Amazon because
When they open it up,
the
only
inside
they'll
joke, yeah,
say.
the inside joke being if you're reading the circuit board, you probably have nefarious, intentions.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and look, everyone went back to work the next day, and, the circuit board's still there, and Amazon discontinued the product 3 years later.
There must have been a few special high fives when that news came in.
It was a yeah, I mean, everyone felt good about it.
Yeah.
But it again, it's like what you realize in building a company is it's not about that low of, "Oh, this big company came out and copied you," and it's not about that high of you won. It's about everything in between and that feeling in between and how you're just riding the day to day.
Mm. So what does your day-to-day look like then? I would imagine you have to compartmentalize a lot of your time and be really strict with your time. How do you navigate your day and make sure that you don't feel too stressed or too fizzy in your head?
Well, I will say I don't feel a lot of stress throughout the day. I try to take on stress, in a lot of different contexts in my life, in part to feel comfortable under stress,
Mm.
so doing really intense exercise, meditating, doing hot cold therapy all the time.
I notice you've got the ice baths on the roof
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
Pretty cool.
I think if you go seek out stress and take it on, it helps you be more comfortable when stress shows up to your door.
Mm.
And and so I wouldn't say I feel all that much stress throughout the day running the company. I would say that I'm in a constant sprint, as a feeling, but it's more exhilarating and calm, if that makes sense, than it is a feeling of being under enormous pressure.
Mm.
And that's not to say that I don't carry a lot of responsibility for the role. We have lots of shareholders and employees and investors and, billions of dollars worth of market cap that we have to support. And, and yet I think the best way to do that is with a steady hand and a relentless energy.
Mm. Corporate wellness is I guess is growing in popularity. Companies making more of an effort to get their employees and their staff feeling better and working together, and it's a space I work in, trying to introduce that idea of stress being your friend, and you can, use it for good or evil depending on your own perception. It could literally help you live longer if you see stress as something that can be beneficial. Um, but sometimes there's pushback in that space in terms of people questioning whether companies are fully behind that or whether it's window dressing some of the time. And I wonder, just from your own perspective in the corporate world, do you think there's a real space for and a potential to help your employees, feel better and work better, and using those kinds of tools? Is it something that's tangible for you as a founder and CEO?
Well, everyone at Whoop wears Whoop,
Mm.
and I think that naturally pulls you into a mindset of sleep and recovery, and as a consequence of those things, how much strain you're putting on your body and, when you're dialing it up or down, and look, we have a conversation about that as a company. We have, an employee sleep bonus, which is pretty unique, where if you get over 85% sleep performance in a month, you get a bonus, as part of your paycheck.
That is so cool.
Yeah,
We
so
see, I love that, but that's active. To me, that's really tangible
yeah.
wellness encouragement. That
It speaks to our brand,
yeah.
and, it's true to our identity, and so, yeah, the headline is "We pay people to sleep." The, the bit on stress and stress management, I think it's still not particularly well discussed in society and particularly for young people. I think there's a little bit of a pop culture messaging around stress, which is, "If you're feeling stressed, take on less." And that's kind of like the easiest way to think about stress and probably not the way that's gonna get you wherever you wanna go in life, right? What you wanna find with stress is how to be confronted with it and how to handle it. And the path to learning how to handle it is a highly personal one. It probably involves tools like breathing and meditating and exercise and rest and all these different components. I mean, the first eureka for me in having a daily recovery score, just as an individual, was, wow, I'm run down a lot. And what follows is, okay, if you're run down, well, let's take on a little less stress, let's take on a little less strain, let's work out less. Okay, fine. So then maybe you start to get more balanced, so to speak, and maybe your recovery comes up a little bit. But as time goes on, what you start to realize is you want to actually be able to take on a ton of strain and then the next day be recovered, right? And it's this feeling of the more things that you can do to have your body recover and respond and bounce back, actually the more you can accomplish and the more you can take on. And that starts to actually reframe your relationship with stress, where you start to look at stress as a tool for growth. And when you get into that growth mindset, pretty exciting things happen.
Mm. Finally, what would you like to see happen?
Well, from the vantage point of Whoop, I mean, we build technology to improve health and performance, and we've got an unbelievable collection of members around the world that's only growing. And my aspiration is that we, uh, build a company that goes from improving people's lives to increasingly saving people's lives. And I think the power of continuous health monitoring is for people to deeply understand their bodies and for them to have a tool that's preventative, and can help really shift the whole healthcare industry from being purely curative to being preventative. And, uh, and that's gonna be, a long pursuit, but I think is an important one and certainly is energizing to chase every day.
Mm. Sometimes I have the fearful image that there's an office in the Whoop HQ that are just monitoring hangovers.
I can promise you that's not the case.
And they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, Dermot's got another one here. That's a 6% recovery. We're gonna have to put him on our naughty list." Um, Will, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. It's been fascinating talking to you. Keep up the amazing work. As you know, I've been a fan of Whoop for years, so I look forward to seeing what else you're gonna bring our way.
Thank you, Dermot, and thank you for being on Whoop.
Pleasure.